Try again.
Yes, we are being recorded, at least on my side. Okay, we're with Phyllis Hornback today, and that's Hornback with an A. You'll notice mine is Hornbeck with an E, but we are from the same family. And I wanted to talk to Phyllis today about some common relatives and how we met and where we started off. And it's a funny story. So I'm going to kind of set it up for you, and then I'm going to let Phyllis tell it. Um, but I was cruising my Facebook one day, and I saw a post from Platte County, Missouri Historical Society, and I'd never heard of that, never seen it before. And the big headline was, "My great grandfather was Warnar Hornbeck." And I think you were looking for other family members. Is that correct?
It may have been someone else who put the original post, and
I
I replied,
I no, I think it was
no,
your
it was
post.
me.
It was your post, and you had a bunch of people reply, and there were some other Hornbecks that replied that I actually spoke to.
Oh,
And
wow.
so, and I don't know, but anyway, her post was there, and I said, "Well, that's odd. My seventh great grandfather was Warnar. That has to mean we're related." So I immediately started typing this big long note because I had been doing this genealogical thing for the last 4 or 5 years. And I had so much history on Warnar, how he came over here. I mean, just everything. I'm typing this big long note to Phyllis, total stranger, and I'm sending it to her on Facebook Messenger. And Phyllis gets the note, and you take it from here.
So I get a lot of fake messages on Facebook from people I'm not friends with.
You mentioned you have over 4,000 followers on Facebook, right?
I'd have to check. I'm not sure how
Right.
many there
And
are.
so you have a lot of messages coming through from strangers. But go ahead.
So I saw the name, which did not ring a bell. And my first thought is this is another fake message. So I can't actually see the messages until I click in, but I don't want to click in because then the other person
No,
may possibly
well, they know you saw it, but you're worried about maybe some sort of virus coming through, right?
scam or something.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so
yeah.
I was just going to ignore it. But I had a little extra time. So I went to your Facebook page and I started
And
scrolling through the pictures.
I didn't just send the message; I sent a friend request too.
Right.
That so
And I
might
get
have
a
helped.
lot of fake ones of those too. So I started looking at your Facebook page and scrolling through the pictures because it's from Tom McGraw, is it?
That's correct. That
And
is
I'm
correct.
like, I have no idea who this is.
Yeah.
I'm scrolling through the pictures. I'm not seeing anything. I'm thinking, oh, this is fake. I'm not going to open the message. I'm not going to accept. And then I saw a headstone in a
Yeah.
cemetery that said Hornback.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know whose headstone, but I thought, well, maybe there's a family connection here. So I went ahead and clicked, which at that point I could see the long detailed message. And I'm glad I did because here we are.
Right. And it was a long, detailed message because I didn't want her to think that I was some creep. I wanted her to know that I had all this information, and anyway, we started from there. And that was maybe 8, 12 weeks ago. We were total strangers up until that point. And what's interesting, this is the funniest thing. We lived in the same town for 20 years. We lived in the same apartment complex, not at the same time, but the same apartment complex. We didn't know each other the whole time. And the whole time, we have a common great
We're
grandfather.
distant cousins. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And so that was just the funniest thing, um, that we lived in the same town. And
And
then,
now we're far away. Now
yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
Iowa.
And it's another 20 years after that first time that we spent in the same town. And it's 20 years later, I see that post from you, and now we get connected. That's just so bizarre and so funny. But I wanted to talk about a little bit about Warner and how he came here, and a little bit about your side of the family. Because Warner had two wives. You came from the second wife, our side came from the first wife. But I've been tracking both sides, just not down to you yet. Um, anyway, Warner came here in 1654. Tell me what you were aware of prior to knowing me about Warner.
Well, I had just seen what was in the books and genealogy charts.
Okay.
And when you get that far back, it's hard to know for sure.
If stuff gets
So
very
I think
difficult.
there were a lot of assumptions made.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's the best we can do in genealogy
Mm-hmm.
until new documents appear, because,
Mm-hmm.
as you've said, until it's in writing,
Right.
and
Exactly.
his name is not on any ship manifest that I'm
Right.
aware of.
Right. Right. And that's how I was able to track all this down. It was also a lot of process of elimination. But I also knew that Warner was my seventh great grandfather. And so I wanted to go further and find out where he came from, how he got here. It turns out he came here as an orphan through the almshouse in Amsterdam. And he came over here on a ship called the Pear Tree in 1654 with a group of 20 orphans, as well as the first Ashkenazi Jew to arrive in the New World. And that was a very big deal because the colony had to take a vote on whether to let him in because he was different from everybody else. They had the curled hair that hung down on both sides, and so they were different, and they had to take a vote on whether to let him in. I thought that was odd, but I guess par for the time. But he came on the same ship, and we've discovered this because Warner sued people in 1660 for 2 years of wages, and that means that he had to have been here prior to 1660. So he was here prior to even 1658 because that 2 years he had to work in order to sue for it. But he came here. I found the ship's manifest for the pear tree, and it listed the 20 orphans from the almshouse. And process of elimination orphan was one of those. Warren was one of those orphans, and so he came on a journey which lasted 6 months from Amsterdam to New Amsterdam at the time, which is now New York. Um, and then from there, that's where he had the two wives, and that's where our families came from. But your family and my family both migrated across the country together. It seems like it appears because we were all in the same places at the same times.
And they would be cousins, so,
Yeah,
or
cousins.
distant
Well,
cousins.
yeah,
So,
or actually brothers. I mean, stepbrothers, right? Because all of Warner's kids from their mother's side and my mother's side, they would be stepbrothers.
and
So,
then as the generations progress,
mhm,
the cousins would have grown up together and known each other,
mhm,
and
mhm,
the families probably talked about going west together
mhm,
and
mhm.
made plans together.
I'm certain of that. And you and your family wound up in Kentucky, or not you, but your family wound up in Kentucky, and they eventually migrated to Illinois. But we also migrated to Kentucky. Our side did as well, and I believe it was Vermilion, Illinois, Vermilion County, uh, and then wound up in Indiana. But your side of the family has some interesting stories that I was not aware of. Why don't you tell us about those? Some of the famous people that you know.
So Abraham Hornback was born in Virginia, and you have an interesting Virginia story from his distant cousin by that time, not too distant though, Benjamin. In he was in Virginia, right?
Yes. Yep. Yep.
As Abraham was starting to go west at that point, and once they got to Menard County, they stopped outside of Greenview, Illinois, where Abraham was the first person buried at the Hornback Cemetery, and he and a couple of his children started the Hornback Farm, which was on Hornback Road, and
Mhm.
I moved to eventually. I was the seventh generation to live
Mhm.
out there when I lived there,
Mhm.
and found out that Abraham Lincoln had been to the farm for dinner
Mhm.
because Abraham's son John was lieutenant to then Captain Abraham Lincoln in the Black Hawk War,
Mhm. Mhm.
and they remained friends. And the Hornbacks used to go to the Salem store William Barry and Abraham Lincoln had.
Mhm. Mhm. Where we have heard that Abraham Lincoln is was not a very good store operator.
So,
Apparently.
valuable history of the first days of Menard County unearthed, which tells this story, says that he had related that he used to go to the mill at Salem where Abraham Lincoln and Barry first started their grocery store. They had to wait for their grist and always found Lincoln on a lounge reading a book and Barry behind the counter. Lincoln would say, Barry, give the boy something to drink. Hornback voted for Lincoln
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
supported him.
Yeah.
And then his son became a captain, Captain Robert Hornback, in the Civil War for the
Mhm.
Union.
Right. And fought for the cause of abolishing slavery. Yep. And we also had people on the South as well. Uh,
There are Hornbacks on both sides.
so it was literally brother against brother in the Civil
Tragically,
War.
yes.
And that was completely true for many, many families. But what I found interesting was your story about Lincoln. And so I decided to find some documentation on that. And I did find some through Illinois. Uh, and it's very cool. Uh, it shows that Lincoln and our ancestor, Jonathan, you know him as John, both mustered on the same day in the same town for the Black Hawk War. Lincoln wound up being a captain, and Jonathan wound up being his lieutenant, listed as a spy in the Black Hawk War. So they certainly knew each other well because they traveled together through the Black Hawk War. They traveled from southern Illinois to northern Illinois, possibly even into Wisconsin. I don't know. But there are a lot of documentation of the battles that they saw. They didn't fight in any, but they saw the remnants of the battles, and that's where Lincoln got a taste for war, and he did not like it. So, um, but I found that very interesting, and they recommended I speak to the uh, Lincoln Presidential Library that they would have a lot more documentation. I did find enough where Lincoln had some documents out there where Jonathan's signature is actually on them. So that just goes to show they knew each other.
And the store was in the area, and my family's talked about Abraham Lincoln coming to the farm and having
Mhm,
dinner
mhm.
there.
That town was the kind of the hub. It was where the sawmill was. It was where the general store, all the supplies coming in. So all the surrounding farms would come there for their supplies. Um, they would ford, they would cross. There was a river between our family and that town, and there were three river crossings at that time, well documented. So we could even get down to where our relatives crossed this river to go pick up their supplies. So we have a lot of documentation on it, and that's great because that's important. Um, but yeah, those are just some of the interesting stories that we're going to be talking about in the future. Uh, and I want to thank you for your time, Phyllis. And I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. And we'll continue this another day with another story.
All right. Thank you. Bye bye.
You bet. Bye bye.